When disaster strikes, what do countries do? Well, they look for help, don't they? But one of the organizations that is often the first on the ground, boots on the ground, is Samaritan's Purse. And today we have Darren Tosh, who's the senior director with Samaritan's Purse International Relief. He's going to be talking to us about their readiness to respond to crisis. We know there are so many crises currently happening right now, from Gaza to what took place in Jamaica. We have the crisis in Ukraine, and the list is almost endless. He is here to help us understand in a greater capacity what Samaritan's Purse is doing. I'm going to tell you, it is simply amazing. One of the other crises that many families face is Christmas time. How do we cope? How do we get along with people? How do we provide all the presents? I want to suggest to you today that while we don't have all those answers to you today, we do have a resource that we want to make available to you. It is our December devotional guide filled with amazing Advent readings to help us walk in the peace of the Christmas season. And so for your best gift, if you go to theperspective.tv, we'd be happy to mail this out to you so you have it for the entire month, and in a very real way, get into God's Word and walk in His peace, as opposed to living in pieces. Stay with us. I'll be right back. Welcome back to The Perspective. And as I said in the introduction, I'm delighted that Darren Tosh is with us. Darren, thanks for joining us on the program.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you for being interested in what's happening.
Well, I'm very interested, and I'm excited for the work of Samaritan's Purse. But for people who are not aware of Samaritan's Purse and what they do, I'd love you just to explain everything from how your boots on the ground when there's a crisis to those shoe boxes that I can see just over your shoulder.
Yeah, so Samaritan's Purse is an international relief organization, and we really we've equipped ourselves to be able to deliver the gospel into really difficult situations. So Samaritan's Purse is a very practical organization. We've got offices around the world, and we go into very difficult situations where there's been hurricanes, war, other disasters, so that we can serve alongside the local church. We believe that God's plan A is the local church, and so we work with the local church to be able to deliver aid to some of the most needy and most devastated communities around the world. And a big part of that is recognize that there's gospel opportunities through all of our work. And people probably don't realize this, but Samaritan's Purse has probably one of the largest children's ministry programs in the world through Operation Christmas Child.
Yeah, tell us about that. Tell us about that.
Well, there's, as the boxes you can see behind me, that's this time of year where everyone's getting ready across Canada and the US and the UK. We're packing these shoe boxes, these gift boxes, and we end up collecting them across the country. And the third week of November actually is when we bring them all into our local churches for collection. And then we send them out across the world, and we send them to local churches who end up using those boxes as part of their ministry outreach. And so in Canada, we're praying and hoping that we might be able to bless almost 500,000 kids this year with that program. And every time we end up giving a box, it's to a kid that's never received one before. And for many kids, this is the first time they've had a gift of that, special quality that's just for them. And with that, the local church ends up sharing the good news of Jesus Christ. They end up getting to know the families, and there's even a discipleship program that follows. So we see so many churches growing, so many churches planted because of Operation Christmas Child. And to this day, it's probably one of the best church networks globally. And Samaritan's Purse every year is blessing about 10 million kids globally with Operation Christmas Child.
That is fantastic. And I get excited. I mean, I'm aware of the shoebox ministry, but just hearing it again from your voice excites me again to see the impact that it is making. You're no stranger to world crisis. And if I have my facts right, you've been with Samaritan's Purse for about 25 years. And you've just give us the thumbnail sketch of some of the countries you've lived and worked in.
Well, I've spent pretty much my entire career with Samaritan's Purse, and I've been incredibly fortunate to be a part of responses to the Nepal earthquake, working in Cambodia to help that country reopen up and the church to become established there after so many years of genocide and war. Sri Lanka after the tsunami, and Vietnam. We have an incredible program there that I was a part of for many years, where we're working with a church that is thriving, but of course it's a communist country, and so there's lots of challenges there. So I've had the privilege to work around the world and see some incredibly difficult things, but it's just been amazing to see how God moves, how
Wow.
God has opened up doors for me, and to have those experiences.
Well, as we're saying this, and I didn't tell you this, we're going to be running your website all across the lower third on the program today. And I want to talk about three specific areas that are in front of us right now. There's obviously the war in Ukraine and the devastation that is there. I pastor a church along with doing the perspective, and we have many Ukrainian families that are here. And so I hear a bit of that. I want to hear what you're doing. And I want to talk about what's happening in Gaza. And, as we ponder the massive job in just addressing the humanitarian crisis. And then, of course, what has happened in the Caribbean and in particular with Jamaica. So as we're running the program today, you're going to have a website that you can go to donate. And I want to encourage you to be generous today because if there's any one organization that I would recommend to know that your money is going to where it's supposed to go, it is Samaritan's Purse. God has just richly blessed this organization. And Darren, I'm glad you're here to talk about it. So, for the next couple of minutes, let's talk about Ukraine. What are you seeing there? What is the issue? How can Canadians be a part of this ongoing restoration process?
Yeah, so Samaritan's Purse has been working there since the war broke out. The most recent iteration of the war broke out 3 years ago. The situation is just continues to be as serious as it was 3 years ago. I was recently just on the border of Ukraine. I was visiting some of the Ukraine refugee programs that we have in Poland, and I was personally struck by how this is still a fresh issue. There are still new people leaving Ukraine. There are still new issues that are coming across the border. We have a team that's based out of Kyiv. This is probably Samaritan's Purse's second largest operation. And we've had 3 years of intense activity where we've been working again with local churches to be providing food aid as the largest program right now, where we're actually supplying local churches with massive amounts of food that they can be actually getting into the hot zones, into the contested areas. You have to remember that those areas are still highly populated. There's still a lot of older couples that are choosing to stay back. There's some people that are just have no options but to stay and live in those areas that are contested. So the food aid program has been an absolutely massive effort. I think there's been over 250 million pounds of food that have been distributed to date, and that's been through the local church. And you have to remember, the local church, they're not just serving as a ministry outreach. These are their sons and daughters that are perhaps on the front lines. This is their husbands that are working. And so the food aid program continues, and it takes an incredible amount of resources to be able to do that. We've got a large medical program. We continue to train and help the Ukrainian medical professionals. We've trained about 18,000 in
Let me jump in.
ICU.
Let me jump in
Yeah.
on that. When you say you've trained them, what kind of training are you providing?
So we end up doing specialty burn training, especially. So when you end up seeing some of these missiles and rockets hitting these apartment blocks and areas,
Yeah.
one of the issues is obviously intensive burn. So we've been doing burn training.
Wow.
Emergency care is one of our specialties. We have emergency field hospitals that we took into Ukraine, and that war injury and ICU care for war injury is something that we've been able to train some of the Ukrainian hospitals in. And these are obviously things that, historically they wouldn't have been dealing with, thankfully. But today, that's the reality. They're having to be dealing with war injury. And burns are especially
That's horrific.
really hard,
It's very
and
horrific.
so to be able to bring some extra capacity, some extra training in, it's been a real blessing for us to be able to work with the Ukrainian medical system.
Darren, thank you for just giving us that little bit of a window because suddenly we realize we're more than just presents to children in shoeboxes, but the scope of what you're doing is amazing. Folks, you're listening to Darren Tosh, and he's the Senior Director with Samaritan's Purse International Disaster Response and Relief. You're watching The Perspective. My name is Mike Sherbino. We're going to be back in just a moment to find out about what Samaritan's Purse is doing in Gaza and also what they're doing as a response to the disaster in Jamaica and the Caribbean. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Hey, welcome to The Perspective. Mike Sherbino here. We're glad you're with us.
It's all right here. Watch when you want, where you want.
Well, welcome to The Perspective. I'm Lori.
Real stories, honest questions, a fresh perspective, right where you are.
Today, take time to relish
The Perspective. Follow, like, share. You're part of the mission.
Welcome back to The Perspective. I'm here with Darren Tosh, and we're talking about his role in international relief for many of the disasters that we're seeing worldwide. And in particular, right now, we're going to talk about Gaza. Darren, when you think of the word Gaza and all that we've seen in the news, the devastation, how do you as an organization begin to plan how to help?
Well, we're incredibly moved by what's happening there, and we're looking for ways that we can continue to support what's happening in Gaza. There's 2 million people there that are needing assistance. So Samaritan's Purse, we have, our specialty is getting relief into those types of situations. So right now, our focus has been the food aid. And so to date, we've been able to supply and distribute about 1 million meals to women and children in Gaza.
Amazing.
So it's a complex situation, but it's one that, we're incredibly moved and we're trying to be able to do more in.
So when you go into a place like that, and I realize that it's been very challenging to get permission to go in, so we're going to bypass that question. But when the time comes that you can get in and do all that you want as an organization, what could that look like? What would you anticipate? Is it just feeding, or is there more?
So typically we would end up offering food programs, water programs, clean water programs. We have the capacity to be able to fly in these large water filtration units that can give, each unit can do 10,000 people per day.
Wow.
Our emergency medical program has expanded, and we're really our world leader now in providing field hospitals into difficult situations. And so, like a lot of other disasters around the world, we would end up considering medical operations. For the past couple of months during the summer in Gaza, we have been able to offer first aid at the food distribution sites. But I can only imagine that there will be some healthcare needs coming up in the future that we would be interested in seeing how that develops down the road.
So when a disaster happens in a country, and we're going to talk about another situation in just a moment, are you the person who actually is calling the officials of the country and offering help, or do you find they're calling out to you as well?
Both and. I mean, the situation is typically that we already have some level of relationship with the government, typically, again, through the local church establishing some of those bridges for us. So when we consider a response, we're on the phone with our key church partners, which, like I was mentioning earlier, Operation Christmas Child provides that network often. And so those church partners will end up connecting us often in with the Ministry of Health or the airport authority or whoever it is we need to be connecting with. The UN obviously is an important actor in all of this process. So we end up typically with a disaster, we're traveling to that site on the day of the disaster. We end up mobilizing as soon as it looks like something's happening. So we try to have boots on the ground with real immediacy so that we can be at the table talking with government, with the church, with the UN. So as plans get built out, that we're able to speak into those plans and that we're able to get into whatever situation there might be that we could be providing aid.
Yeah, I am just full of thanks for what you people are doing and how you are anticipating and thinking ahead because it's not will a disaster happen, it's when is it going to happen. And even here in Canada, I think of the various fires and, in Jasper and Fort McMurray and different places that are a little closer to home, but to realize that you folks are way more than shoe boxes. But you know what? Those shoe boxes are so important because when everything is bleak, the joy that comes. Tell me what's in a shoebox.
So a shoebox is always individual. So it depends on who's packing, but typically there's some school supplies. There might be a hygiene item, a face cloth. There might be some significant toy like a doll or a teddy bear. And what we encourage most often is and people don't understand how powerful this is, but putting a picture of your family and a letter to the kid that receives it, that is always the most exciting bit. I've done hundreds of these distributions. And when you sit down with the child and they open up their box and they see these amazing gifts, they always want the letter read to them first, because that's that personal connection. And for somebody in Canada to be able to say that they love them, that they're thinking of them, that's powerful. And for kids that are in desperate situations, that is an incredibly pivotal moment in their life.
Hmm. As you're talking about this, I want to talk for a few moments about a recent hurricane that has hit Jamaica and Bahamas. And sometimes when it's splashed across the news, we go, we have that moment and maybe for a day or two, but then it's gone. But you could be there conceivably for months. Is that correct?
Months or years even. The situation in Jamaica, 2/3 of the country was the infrastructure wiped out the electrical grid. It takes weeks, months to be able to rebuild some of that infrastructure. So Samaritan's Purse, typically with a hurricane program, we might be involved in the first phase, which is emergency relief. We'll get water, food, and some emergency shelter in place. But then there's the rebuilding, then there's the reconstruction piece. And so Samaritan's Purse may very well be in Jamaica for months, if not years to come with rebuild and recovery activities.
So, Darren, we are broadcasting all across Canada and the States with this program and into Europe. And we want to invite people to go to that website right now and make a generous donation. I just can't encourage you enough. Darren, talk to me about where faith comes into an organization like Samaritan's Purse. Because, my goodness, it's not as if government is issuing you money. Where does it come from? How has God been providing?
Yeah, God has really been using Samaritan's Purse, I think, in part because we've been so faithful to presenting the gospel when and wherever we can. And we are absolutely dedicated to seeing the local church being resourced with it. And so whether that's through Operation Christmas Child, where we're resourcing essentially one of the world's biggest children's ministries through these local churches, or if we're working in rural Cambodia with farmers, there's always going to be an opportunity for us to be able to share the good news and be able to give people a message of hope that just comes straight out of the Gospels. And we don't end up missing an opportunity to be able to profile the local church so that they can not only build relationships in their community, but they can build relationships with their governments. There's a lot of countries we work in where the church doesn't have that type of profile. And so these types of opportunities, whether it's in Ukraine or Jamaica or other places, this is an opportunity for the church to be able to transform their own communities with the help of our generous donors who end up then resourcing Samaritan's Purse to then be doing great things in some of these disaster areas.
Darren, I just want to thank you for coming on the program. I look forward to having you back as you bring some reports about at least these three areas that we've been chatting with. So, folks, just check that website out and make a generous gift today to Samaritan's Purse. Thank you, Darren.
Thank you. Thank you.
Folks, you're watching The Perspective. I'm going to be back in just a moment to be sharing with you from God's Word today.
Did you know you can stream our shows on demand? We are thrilled to announce the launch of our channel on Roku TV. You can now watch The Perspective shows anytime you like and navigate through a variety of playlists. How to find us? Simply search for the Perspective channel, find our logo screen, and save it under your channels of choice on your Roku selection menu. Don't miss out. New feature shows will be updated weekly.
Giants are big. That's why they have the name giant, and they can do a lot of damage. Sometimes the giants that we face are not physical, but sometimes, like what we've been talking about with Samaritan's Purse, the catastrophic impact of a hurricane, a flood, a fire, and how we respond to those giants that can just overwhelm us. Or for some of you, perhaps today, the giant is a broken relationship, the tension that you're dealing with. Maybe you're struggling with an addiction. It might be in the area of weight loss. It might be in the area of a drug or substance abuse issue that you're battling. I'm not sure what your giant is, and hopefully today you have no giants on the horizon, but sooner or later they will come. And today in our devotional study, as we're in the month of November, we're looking at the giant killer himself, David, the young boy. You remember parts of the story, maybe all of it, but I want to take you back and I want to read some of those key scriptures when David fights the giant Goliath. And here we go. It's in 1 Samuel chapter 17 and verses 41 to 47. So meanwhile, the Philistine, with his shield bearer in front of him, kept coming closer to David. He looked David over and saw that he was little more than a boy, glowing with health and handsome, and he despised him. And he said to David, "Am I a dog that you've come at me with sticks?" And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. "Come here," he said, "and I will give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals." Now, talk about intimidation. That'd be a little much for me to process. Did David swallow? Did he cower in fear? I don't think so. And there's a reason why, but let's hear what he said. And David said to the Philistine, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin." So David was not denying the reality that he was in. "But I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defiled. And this day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. This very day I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. And all those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves. For the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands." Now, talk about trash talking, or was he talking about something that he knew? I think there is a huge difference. It wasn't trying to intimidate someone just before you go into the fight. Certainly, Goliath was trying to do that. And when you face a giant in your life, it always wants to knock you down. It wants to intimidate you. But David knew truth, and it was truth that sustained him, that gave him incredible confidence. Let's unpack it. Well, first of all, let's realize this. Goliath was one big dude. Most giants are. He was at least a foot taller than David, and likely much more. And his armor alone, we're told, if we read in the story, weighed about 125 pounds. My goodness, that's more than some of you actually weigh yourself. It says the weight of the spearhead was similar to a Christmas turkey, maybe another 15 or so pounds. And David, on the other hand, he was the lightweight. He was young. He was ruddy, the Bible says. But he was armed with two things. And what were they? Well, he was armed with a slingshot, and he was armed with faith. And he was going into battle relying on the promises of God. And friends, when you and I face giants in our life, whatever it is, we need to be reminded of the promises of God. I went through that this morning as I was dealing with the finances of operating this ministry, of reaching across our country and the states. And it's so easy to say, oh, you can't do it. You cannot sustain it. But God reminded me again and again of his promises. And we hold on to his promise. As I do, so you need to do that as well. So what kind of giant are you facing? Most giants come wearing a garment. And you know what the garment is? It's the garment of fear and intimidation. Oh, you can't do this. You can't expect that God will be with you, that he will sustain you. But David, he had a different language. He is the one who would write, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Why? Because you are with me. He would go on to write in one of the other Psalms that God is my refuge and strength, a present help in time of trouble. Help is no good if it comes late, but he says God is always on time. And I have learned that while he is always on time, he is never in a hurry. He will come and he will meet you at the moment when he knows is best for you. The Bible also says that the Lord is a strong tower, and the righteous man runs into it and is safe. And so David took what he had, his skill in using a slingshot, and the promises of God. He said, God, this is what's in my hand. I'm going to believe that you're going to use it to knock down the giant. Ask the Lord today what he's already given you into your hand today to change the situation, the way you're looking at the reality that is around you. And remember to hold on to the promises of God. He will never fail you or forsake you.
Will you donate 2 hours of your time? Crossroads Prayer Center is seeking people with a heart willing to prepare him room to join in the amazing work God is doing through prayer. Learn about becoming a Crossroads prayer partner today.
Thank you for watching The Perspective today. And if at any time you'd like to talk to someone to receive prayer, why not call our toll-free number, 855-910-6297. And as we head into this season of Christmas, I want to remind you to go to theperspective.tv and to request a copy of our Advent Guide. 31 readings that'll take you through the month of December and will bring the message of Christmas close to home. Something you can do with your children, with your grandchildren, on your own, just to take a few minutes each day and to focus on Christ and to bring his peace into the middle of your pieces so that you are experiencing the joy that he wants you to have. And for your best gift to this ministry, we're happy to send this out to you. Thank you from all of us here at The Perspective as we get ready to celebrate this Christmas season.